We've seen some significant victories through the strength of organising, and we're going to hear from speakers from those organisations on the significant positions and significant wins that they've had in their organisation, from my organisation of course. And I'm so pleased that we're going to have a speaker speaking at one of the off rooms on the 0 hour contract issue. I've got to tell you. Not just for those people, but for everybody who supported them. And it was a significant victory for the Labour movement, because we've had a lot of beatings in the past.
And there's some of my colleagues from other stations and that in the room today. I'm very, very proud to be a firefighter. We're sort of biased, I would say, but I think it's one of the greatest jobs in the world. I'm honoured to wear that top, and I'm honoured to go and serve the people in the area that I work in. Unfortunately, this government and our mayor see it in his infinite wisdom that it's totally right and appropriate to shut 10 fire stations across London. And it just breaks my heart to see across the board what they're doing to this country. When I look at, for example, my grandmother, her entire life was worked, put into this system, and is immobile now. She's completely immobile. She's on a hoist. They are now trying to make the carers come for 15 minutes now for her care package. By the time they walk in the door, it's time for them to leave. And I do everything that I possibly can for her. I cut her grass, I clean her house, I do her shopping. But physically, I can't lift her. So I need the professionals in there. So the mark of a good society is the way it treats its elderly and its disabled and its sick. And when I speak to people that are guests in this country, or people that I know that are maybe not from this country, I say, please, rest assured that what they are doing is not in my name, because I am absolutely disgusted and embarrassed beyond all recognition about what they're doing. There is money when they're needed. What they've done is they've just creamed it off to make the fat cats even richer than they already are. So thank you very much for your invitation today, and I hope I didn't feel
And here's what happened, and we know this from people who've been sacked by Roman and gone to work at TNT. Here's what happens in TNT. You come in the morning, and depending on how much mail you cleared the previous day, you get a bid for 5 hours of work. But you have to. But then, if you complete in 4 hours, then you're an agency worker at this time. Then you have to bid and bid and bid. A bit like what it used to be in the docks. But more to the point, you're an agency worker for at least 6 to 9 months, and then when you get established, so to speak, you're on £7.10 an hour. So our people in London are on about £12 to £14 an hour. So that's the kind of future they want, where everyone's scrambling around, with everybody fighting each other about this or that work, and that's a future we're not going to accept. But I wouldn't rule out coordination, coterminous action. You know, that's something we've got to think about and consider. So absolutely not ruling it out in terms of coordinated action, because the fact of the matter is, if we fight, you know, we keep getting told it doesn't make a difference. So why do they keep going on about it? Yeah. That's the point. You know, that's the point. Why do they keep going on about it? Because it does make a difference. And the first thing they try to do in any war is obviously demoralise your opposition. Tell your opposition that they can't win. Tell the opposition that it doesn't make a difference. And some of our people, you know, will say, well, maybe it doesn't make a difference. I'll just give you one recent lesson, right, in my opinion. In 2003, it was popular to be against the war. In fact, I spoke at this very hall at the Stop the War meeting, and it used to be so tiresome when people used to say, yeah, there was 1 million people on the street, blah, 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 and it never stopped the war, did it? You know. Well, tell that to people about Syria now. Yeah. If you fight, you've got a chance of victory. Let's get fighting. Thank you very much.
All these groups of workers who are on strike or going on strike are in the room today, and that's why I think it's unique, because it's those minds coming together to plot, to organise the resistance against the we got a smell of the potential of making November 30th happen again. We remember November 30th, the 2.5 million who took strike, a fantastic day. But we also remember how we were sold short by some of our leaders inside the trade union movement who refused to take and finish off that dispute. They lost our nerves. Our members didn't lose their nerves. They were willing to fight. They were after ballot, after ballot, after ballot. Every single time thereafter fight, they step up to mark. Where the unions fight over issues that their members want to fight over, guess what happens? People join unions. We saw the 50,000 people demonstrate in defence of the save the National Health Service in Manchester, one of the best demonstrations I've been to. For example, the People's Assembly's call, which is now supported by the TUC, to call a day of civil disobedience on November the 5th, is as big, as vibrant and as lively, as dynamic as possible. That we want to coordinate our strike. You know, I've had a ridiculous argument in my own union recently that yes, we want to strike action, we all unions do by that, but yes, we do like to come out on the teachers, some argue, but we have to be a bit careful because if we go out and strike with others, our case will get lost. I'm sure anybody in the trade union group will hear this argument time and time again by people. It is a ludicrous argument when you think about it. Of course, anybody's union dispute has to ensure that their particular dispute is focused on and won. But it is much more effective if you unite with others. That's the whole point of the trade union movement. We take a lot. Out there. That is an argument we need to pursue, we need to take up with those who think that it is a good way to fight and to organise. So we need to worry about coordinating. I mean, this is about coordinating. It's fantastic that all these strikes taking place, but it does seem a little bit absurd that one group of workers come out on the 31st, another one comes out on the 4th, another one comes out on the 10th, etc., etc. We need to have a day, we need to name that day, and we all come out together.
We face a very real prospect of firefighters getting to an age where they cannot physically maintain fitness standards and being sacked without access to a pension, but being sacked on the grounds of capability. And the very idea that thousands of people who have served their communities, dedicated and loyal workers, so we got a 78% yes vote. We took strike action on the 25th of September. That was solid. And thanks for those of you who joined us on the picket lines. As Kelly mentioned, the strike tonight has been called off, which, you know, it's fair to say has caused some disquiet amongst firefighters because we think, you know, the strike was solid then and we were pretty sure it would be solid again. But nonetheless, we had those internal debates within the union, but we are still fighting. The dispute is still on. We're going to still campaign. It's very, very likely, I think, that there will be further strike action. We need a much wider movement, not just firefighters, and people have alluded to already. We need a wider movement of public sector workers fighting back against the attempt to roll back all the advances that have been made from the Second World War.
Education in this country, just as there's a better way to run a fire service, just as there's a better way to run health, that we have the answers to how you best run things and not the Tory posh boys at the top of our society, really. The teachers in this country are not going to accept that. They're not going to accept that to be forced into a position to teach children that they're worth nothing, to teach children at the age of 5 because they failed. And the NUT executive is going to be talking to the NASUWT executive about continuing that action. We have to, absolutely have to go to the children that we teach to continue that fight in the most serious and determined way possible. If we have to strike again until we win, if we have to have all out, stay out, then we'll have to do that. And that's the thing we have to start doing.
فعلا لتضم الحركه النقابيه والعماليه البريطانيه مع عمال مصر في هذه اللحظه من عمر الثوره المصريه.
It was our strategy to get the ATL involved in the first pension strike. which brought the NASUWT into the big pension strike. And then more recently it's been our strategy to work with the NASUWT as the biggest partner in that. We closed more schools in London on Thursday than we ever have done on our strike. And we had the biggest demonstration we've ever had, as I've described. We've recruited more members in London and other parts of the country in the last few weeks, and we've recruited more reps. We know this. Other people have said this happens when you're involved in campaigning and when you're involved in action. And we're also pursuing the education campaign. There'll be further work, further rallies, further meetings, further publicity around what Jess has described as a real campaign to defend education from Gove and his recognition. The last thing I will say, because I think it's important to say, is about coordinated strike action. The NUT is in favour of coordinated strike action. Kelly and Christine, our Deputy General Secretary and General Secretary, have been at meetings convened by Francis O'Grady to discuss that. Our assessment at the moment is, and it's been described to us by Kelly and Christine, that we are a long way from anything on the scale of November the 30th. And it is the case when I go in schools, and I'm sure many other people go in schools and say, what people really want is another November the 30th, but it's not going to happen, we think, for a long time. We are in favour of coordinated action, and we are talking to other unions about that. But our assessment at the moment is that with the NASUWT, we have to develop the campaign and we have to develop strike action in our dispute. We have to do it within the dynamic of the dispute, within the dynamic about our talks with government, and call action on those terms, not going faster than people may want to, or not going slower than people may want to, in order to wait for coordinated action to take place. So we will be pushing ahead with a programme of action, but it will be within the terms of that dispute. If down the road and discussions develop in a way that mean that we can coordinate that with other unions, then we would be willing to do so and prepared to do so. But I go back to where I started. See, for me personally, I'm not too fixated with everybody doing something on the same day, because what happened this week is that 2 days running, London traffic was brought to a standstill by the FBU, and then by teachers, that meant 2 days running, people in London saw trade unions. The FBU gathered outside Downing Street, us gathered outside Michael Gove's office. So 2 days running, we have publicity for the rising tide of anger, the rising resistance that there is to this government. So, for me, coordination is good, and we'd like to get back to November the 30th. But also, I think if we say that if the posties go on strike on a Tuesday and teachers on strike on a Wednesday and the FBU on strike on a Thursday, that's coordinated action. That is 3 days. We'll work with the UCU, we'll work with other unions who are taking action. Together we can win. We're uniting the resistance in education. Let's unite the resistance across the movement.
Let me just say, of course, if we win on pay, we hope this will strengthen our position as unions in higher education, to defend jobs, to resist privatisation, to deal with all the other issues like work intensification. Because you see, sometimes when you talk to members, they think if we soft pedal on pay, the employers will be nicer to us on other things. And it's not right, it doesn't work like that. If we don't fight on pay, the employers just take it as a green light to hammer us on other fronts. Many of our members voted for strike action, and in the case of UCU too, action short of a strike this time. Some of the people who voted yes this time voted no last time. And they did this because they were getting to the point of enough is enough. Enough is enough with rising prices, I'm coming to my last point, with pay rises below inflation, a tax on pensions, increasing workloads. People have reached the point where they can take no more. But also people voted for action because of disgust with the reactionary forces of this government, the bedroom tax, the tax on estates, etc. Now, as I said, we're going out on strike on the 31st, but we're expecting some Halloween-themed costumes on the picket line. But UCU is also, from the 1st of November, starting a work-to-contract. Now, I challenge the employers, if they're watching this video, I challenge the employers in higher education, come back to the table with a better offer. They can stop the disruption. They've got the money, they just don't want to spend it on our pay. But we're not doing this for a one-day token protest. We're engaged in a serious trade dispute. And if the employers do not come to the bargaining table with a better offer, we will be planning further strikes and escalation of the dispute. So we intend to win, and we hope you win too.
Employers are expecting us to work harder with less workers. In Glasgow was a voluntary severance programme. People left, the posts weren't getting filled. With austerity, the demand on services in social work, also in austerity, has increased dramatically. What the strike was, obviously it's unofficial, but the point I want to make is that no one's in jail, there's been no victimisations, everybody's back at work doing their job. Despite the Labour Council sending out threatening letters with dismissal, the workers are now preparing to organise in terms of taking the dispute forward. The employer asked the branch to repudiate that action. That did not happen.
Some of the things that our employers are doing at the moment is this 0 hours contract. So they've taken away overtime from us, the regular employees, and brought in 0 hours contract to kind of fill in where we would otherwise be doing overtime. And whilst we welcome the opportunity for others to join in on the scheme as employees, we're completely against the 0 hours contract. And I think this whole concept of unions coming together as a unified front is one very powerful force to have, and highly recommended. I'm sorry that I'm very nervous, so I'm going to end my speech there, but it's a pleasure to be amongst you, and it's a pleasure to see so many people interested in employee rights.
Now a MUT rep, I think what we're now the largest all-through academy in the country down in Croydon. The way we went around trying to do something is first of all gathering together a small group of some of the more political activists within the school who'd met around some of the anti-fascist demonstrations and other things to organise a series of school-wide meetings. And from those meetings, obviously I think normally leaflets you produce a leaflet and get it around different workplaces. Being teachers, it was PowerPoint presentations that we would do in our little meetings. And you developed a layer of people who were increasingly confident to go out to their departments, deliver those presentations and try and carry the message forward.
A bit of a criticism as well about Alex Kenny in the first session. I found it extremely frustrating about his comment about in terms of strikes on different days. Now, I personally believe that we should have a rolling programme of strike national action, especially in terms of NUT, NAS, PCS, CWU, and it doesn't help my position in trying to gather support with comments like that which downgrade confidence, and I find that very frustrating. But there's two questions really. I find it hard in my school because it's very rural and it's quite conservative. And obviously being a revolutionary socialist in that area, I think people look at me and think I'm a bit of a nut job, but I always try and be honest and always maintain my position. But I find it very hard sometimes about using language in terms of, my main fear is scaring union members away in terms of the language I use, in terms of trying to get them out for strike action. So in terms of trying to put something in the leaflet, maybe in terms of how you not persuade, because obviously in my position you can't persuade them or can't force them to go on strike, but just in terms of the language you can use.
Yeah, I'm Hod from South Gloss, Hugh Williams, Branch Secretary of South Gloucestershire, where Alex, the last speaker's from. And it has been a phenomenal experience in many ways, because what you start to see is when we start to fight and start the campaign over that 10% pay cut, the union membership rise. Vinnie Green Secure Unit is an institution of 80 to 100 workers. We used to have a union density probably 35–40%. It's more or less 100%. Yeah. They were out on the picket line, 40 of them on the picket line. They have never taken strike action ever before. Ever before. The elderly people's home, the picket line is an elderly people's home, small little thing, right, in a place called Yate, 25 on the picket line. The management have told us there's nothing you can do. And their simple reply is, why wouldn't they not tell you anything else? When is a manager going to say, we're going to cut your pay by 10%, but tell you what, there is something you can do? Of course they say. The context of this is austerity, because in South Gloss, like every single authority, there is an avalanche of cuts to come. South Gloss once ran through 40 million to 50 million worth of cuts in the next 3 years. Bristol, it's even worse. Every authority is going now on a full-scale assault. And what we have, I think in a little way, shown is actually you can start to resist, and the wider political questions. You see, I think the question of the gas hike of 10% is a really big, big issue. It is something we have to get in there and say this is part of what happens when the rich take from the working people and we can start to fight. Last point is, it echoes what Alex says. You see, I got a number of messages of support from the branch country. So bloody moving from Hovis, from a certain branch. Keep fighting, you can win. I tell you what, I'm a bitter old man. I was almost in tears when I saw that. When I saw that in Bridgewater, postal workers this morning will have a bucket at the gate to collect for us, and they've just taken 4 or 5 days strike out in Bridgewater, you can sense a movement. That's what you can feel is coming together. I know Manchester City UNISON mental health branch the other day passed £1,000 to our strike, £1,000. And for our people who have done, the labour movement doesn't mean much. It now means something. That's what the labour movement's about, and we have to fight, and the union officials supported us. It was very, very important, because when they had the pressure put on us about the Vinnie Green Secure Union and the elderly people, we stood firm. And therefore you have to push the union officials, and you have to build the networks from below. I think we started to do that, and I think, you know, I've been involved, obviously, but not being part of the action. I've been bloody inspired by people like Alex, because they actually are the future of the union and future of building resistance. It's absolutely marvellous.
We want to see that as well, but we want to see that coordination. You know, the whole reason why the unions are in the TUC in the first place is so that they can coordinate together. We need to see that coordination. And, you know, I mean, an example of a school dispute is that if the NUT and NSWT go on strike in a school, and the UNISON members who are the support staff don't feel confident to cross that picket line, feel like they have to come into school because there's no picket line, etc. If there's 5 other unions, if the firefighters are on strike, if the UCU's on strike, if whoever's on strike at the same time, actually gives confidence to those unions and members to go, it's not just the teachers on strike, there's 5 national unions on strike at the same time, so maybe we won't. So we can't talk about confidence in that level, where it doesn't really matter whether they combine or not combine. There's a massive quantitative difference, I believe. And just one little thing on the gas prices, which I thought was quite funny. Teaching assistant said to me 2 days ago that her husband works in the works for British Gas for somebody, and said a lot of people think that we're benefiting somehow because we work for British Gas. He said not only are we getting shit wages, but we can't afford our gas bills either.
If you're a new rep, one of the things that happens to you is you could end up just doing loads of casework, and I've experienced this myself. Yes, casework can build your respect for the union within the branch, but it's also, in many respects, it's no good fighting things individually, because individually is where we're weakest, collectively, as the Bakers Union have shown, that's where we're strongest. And it seems to me the crucial missing link in the equation is often, well, how do we move from the individual case to the collective dispute? And that's why I want to give a big up, really, to London region of UCU that are organising, and I think which is absolutely going to be a brilliant day on the 30th of November, and it's going to be at Central St Martin's College. It is only for London UCU, but it is about that very question. It's going to be about questions about how do you actually call a dispute and when, because people don't know how to do that. I mean, I've been around for a long time in the SWP and in unions, and I've never even had to go to that thing. But we're in a situation now where I work, where the management are driving the coach and horses through a national grading structure. We need to do something about that. We need to identify the common thread, the thread of viciousness that underpins management attacks on us, whether we're bakers, whether we work in education, whether we're in the PCS, wherever we are, whether we're postal workers. To do that, we need to know how to call a dispute and how to fight collectively. So initiatives like that are going to be a big part of taking the struggle forward.
I'm a teacher. One of the things that I just thought was very interesting and inspiring from listening to the points that people have made today in this workshop and earlier is that, ostensibly we're all from very, very different workplaces. I'm a teacher, so the public sector, you work for a private sector employer, you work for a private sector employer, you work for a private sector employer. Yeah, the third sector, all of that kind of stuff. But actually, when you listen to us speak, and I think this challenges some of the fashionable ideas about the working class. When you listen to us speak, we've all got really, really, really similar experiences. So if any of us were if any of us now would say the words performance management, we all know what we're talking about. Okay, that wasn't the case, 20 odd years ago or something like that in terms of certain sectors. We've got common experiences in our everyday working lives, therefore we've got to have some common answers to it. And that's about organisation, that's about resistance, and that is about solidarity and actually us being able to network amongst each other to talk about how best we fight back and link it up with the big political questions that inform the situation that we're in.
PCS, HMRC, not as sexy as journalists, firemen, nurses, bakers. We get no sympathy, we get, as you all know, we don't really get paid a fat lot. And everything that the government is doing, we know is ideological. They want to destroy everything that is civilised about our society. Now, I've seen this the things going on, things you don't know about. You don't know that the tax office inquiry centres are all going to close March, April next year. We're trying to fight to stop it. They're trying to get rid of us on the cheap with these performance management things. Every 2 or 3 months I have to apply for my job. They want to destroy us. I get paid 6-7 quid an hour. It's not the king's ransom. The terms and conditions, it's all going. And all this, we need help. We need these managers. They've got to understand, you don't own the bloody civil service. The powers that be are controlling you. Get on our side. Managers are in the union, but they go in and they terrorise us. I think they should. I need all of you.
Unite the Resistance had a big store. We went to a shop and we bought 7 buckets and we put a Unite the Resistance label on and we said we are the official collection, and we collected £700 from the TUC for those fantastic workers in their strike in Wigan. So I'd like to introduce Thank you very much.
I'm proud to be amongst like-minded people. We have to think about the Tolpuddle martyrs and the Chartists and the suffragettes, and yes, people who work at Hovis, the teachers at PCS. We have to think about the great victories that they won and see how we shape trade unionism in the future. Trade unions are not there as money-collecting organisations, but campaigning organisations. That's where we started, and that's where we've got to continue to be. And unions have got to take things further. Yes, we'll still talk about terms and conditions and pensions, and we'll talk about access to justice in the workplace. But we've also got to, within our branches, talk about the bedroom tax, about the effects of workfare and how it damages the youth of tomorrow. Affordable housing, crime, education, and of course, not forgetting the National Health Service. Because everything that I've just mentioned there affects somebody in our family or somebody who we know. That's the real world we're facing with the employees we're dealing with. And then you get the homeless ones who say, it's not about finance, this is about fairness of work. What we want to do, we want to make sure that we can give people certainty of work. Well, you don't get certainty of work by reducing people to 0-hour contracts and agency terms. Those homeless workers showed what bottle really is. Because not one of those members was threatened. Not one of those members was threatened with agency work. Not one of them was threatened with 0-hour contracts. That was something that was going to happen to other people in the future, and I'll tell you what, they defended it. It was absolutely despite the threats from the company, both I got threatened with going to court, the union got threatened with sequestration by Brian Carlton, who's their HR director. These people got threatened with their job losses and indeed closed their factory, and they took them on and they won. And they won because of what you people did as well. We got fantastic support from most of the trade union movement. There were some trade unions who don't get involved in strikes and all that. They weren't interested. But the ones who did supported us wholeheartedly. Unite the Resistance, fantastic, absolutely brilliant support that they gave us, and that made sure that we were able to take on this type of company and to win. We won. We need to call for a general strike. Trade union leaders have got to do what it says on the tin. They've got to lead.
I was asked to talk about disabled workers in particular. So looking at the issue of both disabled rights and workers' rights. And if there's one thing I can tell you, that's not two different concepts. That concept is absolutely 100% one and the same thing. Disabled people's rights are workers' rights, and workers' rights are disabled people's rights. We're sold an absolute pig in a poke. We're told that this is about austerity. We're told that this is about money and money saving, so that because we somehow caused this crisis. We didn't cause the crisis, the banks caused the crisis, and the bank's crisis is being used as an excuse to drive forward a new ideology about only certain people have value and therefore only certain people should have any rights. It's nonsense. No cost savings are being enacted by any of this bullshit. When I made the application to Access to Work, the advisor speaking to me on the phone, having got me to outline the list of my issues, said, well, it's a lot to ask, isn't it? Perhaps it's not really reasonable for you to consider staying in your job. They were her very words. This is what we are up against. But we're not going to stay up against it for long. We're going to fight back. Thank you.
First of all, I'm delighted to be in London and honoured to be part of the Unite the Resistance. I'd like to offer the solidarity of the EIS to the NUT and to the NASGWT in their struggles against an oppressive education minister and an oppressive government. Our best wishes from myself and my colleagues as well to our comrades in the Fire Brigades Union and also to Royal Mail workers. We really can't believe what's happened, though when I speak to Khan, it takes the term selling the family silver to a new level. It seems we are no longer living in a democracy, in fact. If we don't challenge at every opportunity and fight, things will just get worse and worse. So please do keep the EIS fully informed of all events. There are a few of us more than willing to attend. Attendance is up to our national executive, but I trust you'll keep sending invitations. Thank you very much.
For God's sake, TUC, get off your knees and call a general strike. When we look at local authorities and the weak-ass Labour councillors who are supposed to be defending our services, voting to sack workers who are disproportionately reflected in the inner cities with huge numbers of black women. And the historical rationale, the historical analysis of the black community's unemployment is that black men have always been high on the unemployment rate. If black women now are to join us, our community will be plunged into the kind of economic abyss that will unleash the kind of social ills and difficulties that we've had. And now we find that black youth, they say, are what? 60% of black youth are unemployed. That was IPPR study in 2010. We know the government are lying on the figures. We know those figures are even higher. So right here in the middle of the United Kingdom, we have communities who are undergoing a Greek or Spanish-style economic crisis right in the centre of the most so-called civilised country in the world. It's a scandal that needs to be exposed, and I'm so glad to be here with you today to join you in confronting this government's racism, austerity. As we see racism ripping across Europe and fascism rising its head, as we see the recreation of the slavery middle passage with Africans dying in their thousands seeking a better life off the coasts of Lampedusa and Italy, and as we see the EDL, what happened to the UEF beat their ass and... Tommy Robinson, was it Quillen? Yeah, Quillen, Joy Quillen. As we see the explosion of racism across the continent, we can't take any comfort here in thinking the English Channel protects us in relation to being infected with that continental European racism and fascism. We have to do what we know is defeating fascism, and that is unify our communities and bring them together into a solid working class opposition to these racists. So we know they're doing scapegoating. We know that they are seeking to push down and break people's terms and conditions. And quite frankly, I can't wait for the 5th of November. It's my birthday. It's People's Assembly's day of a bonfire, and I was born on a good day when they tried to burn down Parliament. I can't wait to get into some acts of civil disobedience. But Lord knows, in my community, far too many of us go to jail for the wrong reasons. Now it's time to go to jail for the right reasons.
Whether our leaders want to organise us or not, we need to do it for ourselves, because we in this room are not
the shouting at the telly party. We are here because we want to make a change now. More hated than Margaret Thatcher. But I was wrong, brothers and sisters. This lot are worse and without a single redeeming feature. But we defeated Thatcher and we will get rid of these vermin too. We defeated Thatcher not through death or even the ballot box or instead by people power on the streets over the poll tax. Labour didn't lead that struggle, and nor did the TUC. We did, and we won, we can do it again. That's